and welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll discuss user-centered and society-centered design. We'll talk about the history of both of these approaches, their similarities, and of course their differences. The question is, which one is more relevant for us designers today and which one must go? My name is Julia and I'm UI UX and product designer. This is my first YouTube video, so I'm a bit worried and excited. As a disclaimer, this video is heavily inspired by a presentation of Daniel Kranz and Burkhard Müller at the Push conference in 2022. I will use some of their examples and some of the concepts and conclusions they came up with, and of course I will link their presentation down below, as well as other materials I used to write a script for this video. That was a long introduction. Okay, let's dive in. First of all, what is user-centered design? According to Wikipedia, the term user-centered design was first coined by Rob Klink in the paper called The Organizational Context of User-Centered Software Design in 1977, so more than 45 years ago. I like the fact that the first sentence of this paper sounds like this. This paper focuses upon users, the forgotten people in software design. I think it actually reflects the level of company UX maturity back then. The concept became widely popular in 1986 and gained even more attention and acceptance in Donald Norman's books The Design of Everyday Things, which I'm sure a lot of you have already read. Initially, this concept was actually called human-centered design instead of user-centered design. And there is in fact a difference between the two. Using the word human can highlight the importance of empathy and willingness to design for people, and I mean all people and not only customers. After all, there is a reason why we give names and photos to our user personas instead of just leaving them as user 1, user 2, and so on. User-centered design is an iterative process, which usually consists of 4 main stages: understanding the context of use, specifying user requirements, designing the solution, and evaluating against the requirements. It is a very powerful approach to designing products, services, or systems that focuses on the needs, wants, and limitations of the users. The goal of user-centered design is to create products that are usable, efficient, and satisfying for the users. Despite the fact that this concept is very old, it was widely adopted by businesses only in the 2010s. Before that, businesses were driven only by financial goals and didn't realize that a user-centered design approach can also bring them more money, and they thought of it as some kind of idealistic, romantic idea. And honestly, it was a romantic idea at the time. Let me explain why. So, product designers create products, and products exist on the market and follow its rules. If there are not so many products on the market, like it was at the beginning of the internet era, we didn't have many digital products to choose from, then you as a company don't need to spend resources on optimization. For digital products, the pyramid of needs looks like this. First, a product should work and should work exactly as it was advertised. It should get the job done. Second, the product should be safe. Your cell phone shouldn't explode in your pocket, your favorite website shouldn't leak your sensitive data, and so on. For a product to be joyful is kind of a luxury, at least it was back then. So when your business is booming, why focus on user needs? Everybody will buy your product anyway, regardless of the quality of the user experience. But when you're in a market with competition, everything changes, especially when your competitors are heavily focused on the top of the pyramid and spend a lot of resources to optimize their user experience in order to stand out. In this case, and on this type of market, orientation to user needs creates competitive advantages. And by the 2010s, when businesses discovered the power of a user-centered design approach, no one asked why we need to put users in the center. Good UX became a no-brainer. So the ultimate goal of product designer was, and mostly still is, which you can often read in the heading of our portfolio website: I build digital products that make people's life easier. And people here often equals users. Everything we just discussed doesn't sound so bad, right? We are able, using the user-centered design approach, to create more and more optimized apps for our users. But let's discuss the ugly side. User-centered design has gone a long way. Nowadays, as we discussed, the market is filled with companies with a very high level of UX maturity, like really user-focused. The user-centered design was so effective that optimizing for individual user needs has become an obsession. We don't want the user to like the app anymore, we want them to be obsessed with it. Let's take a look at some examples of how even the most user-focused companies can do harm when they don't consider the impact that their product will have on society. First, there's Google Maps, which offers you to find the fastest route. As an outcome, you often spend more fuel than necessary, adding to the pollution problem. Then there's Facebook. Facebook's slogan is "Get the news you like the most" and spend more time on a website creating more money for Facebook, apparently. But anyway, as a consequence of how Facebook's algorithm works, users stay in their information bubbles, only seeing ideas that support their beliefs and not seeing any challenging thoughts or pieces of evidence. And many believe that the outcome of this is nothing less than damage to democracy, polarization, and the new golden era for propaganda. And the most recent example is probably Paris banning electrical scooters on its streets. Companies who offered this service were extremely user-focused. They allowed you to find a scooter anywhere, park it anywhere, and they allowed you to drive at a very high speed. This made the experience of moving around the city harder for everyone else, and particularly affected those with limited mobility. Not even speaking about all those people who were injured in accidents caused by e-scooters. So despite being so focused on the user, soon enough these services won't have any users in Paris. And now society-centered design is stepping up to address the problem. I honestly couldn't find where, when, or who invented the term society-centered design. From my perspective, it's something relatively new and something that is just in the air. So the society-centered design approach says this: we must stop the obsessive user optimization, otherwise we can and often will harm society. Instead, we should focus on the center of the pyramid, the context. The main idea of society-centered design could be expressed in 5 words, coming from me to we. Established models like user-centered design must not be discarded, but expanded. We should start considering passive users of the product. These people or non-human stakeholders like our planet and our nature also have their needs. With this simple switch in mind, we can create better products. So ultimately, society-centered design broadens the context by introducing a new type of user, a passive user, and focuses more on making design sustainable. But now we're at the same stage as the user-centered design approach was at the beginning of the internet era, the stage of romantic idea. Most businesses are not incentivized to put resources and effort to make sure that their products are good for someone other than their customer. We need to demonstrate that caring about society can make you money in the future. And we kind of see that mentality becoming mainstream as more and more companies talk about their values, sustainability policies, working conditions, and so on. We saw the bad examples previously. Now let's take a look at good examples of how companies embrace society-centered design. Remember we talked about Google Maps. They actually announced that at least in some European countries and in the US, they will make an effective route, so the route that allows you to spend less fuel, as a default one instead of the fastest route. And they are also by default showing you eco-friendly restaurants and hotels first. So if you are a company that finds users with Google Maps, you are financially encouraged to be or at least seem more sustainable. And that's an example of how a company doesn't change itself, but it changes the user experience, a tiny feature to help create a better world. How else UX designers can influence the impact that the product will have on society or the planet? Daniel Kranz tells a story of how Bosch, a large company producing home supplies, came to his agency with a request. Bosch showed the interface of their washing machine and asked how can they promote sustainability with just the interface design, not talking about production or something else, just the small screen of the washing machine. Daniel says that they did a test and they discovered that when people choose the washing mode, they think of the eco mode like that. Okay, eco mode is slower, it's not that powerful, I should only choose it when I have time and it's not that important. So user thinks of it as the slow mode. Daniel's team decided to run another test, but this time they made eco mode a default one, and what was the normal mode before is now the waste mode. And they asked users again what they think. And people said, well, if I choose the waste mode, it should be more powerful, more strong, and it should cost more energy. So I should only use it if it's something urgent, but in general, I can use a default mode. So just by defining which label to give to a certain mode, designers can make a big impact on what people would prefer to choose and how much energy they will spend doing laundry. So let's formulate, what is society-centered design? Society-centered design is an approach to design that focuses on creating products and services that meet the needs of society rather than just the individual. It's about designing with empathy, yes, even more empathy than before, understanding the context in which a product or service will be used, and creating solutions that will benefit everyone. And what about user-centered design? This approach is still valid, but it's just not enough today. Because in our global world where everything is highly connected, something that benefits one person can cause massive damage to many others and to our planet. We as designers need to develop tools to help us not only promote sustainable, accessible, and ethical design, but bring that design to life. And maybe we will discuss some suggestions on what these tools should look like in one of the upcoming videos, because there is already something quite interesting. Please let me know what you think about the topic, share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want to read more about sustainable or society-centered design, you can visit the links down below. Thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe, like, and or share this video, of course if you liked it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!